The biggest problem with vintage travel trailers is water damage. Water damage comes from leaks around skylights and especially around windows, and also where the metal is joined. All these seams are sealed originally with something called butyl putty or butyl tape. This is what it looks like when it's new. It's very flexible, very sticky, and it forms a great seal. The problem is that after 30 or 40 years, the stuff dries out, and then cracks form, water gets in, and rot is the result. When the putty around a window dries out and cracks, water gets in, and when water gets in, it gets into the wood, into the framing, the stud wall, if you will, of the trailer. And even though the outside looks fine and the inside looks fine, there's rot going on inside your walls. The way to fix it around a window is to remove the window and to replace the putty with new pliable putty. Smearing silicone around the outside of a seam trying to stop leaks doesn't do anything except make a mess and make it difficult for the next person who tries to fix the problem. The window needs to come out, and if the wood is sound, then it's a matter of new putty and putting the window back in. If the wood is rotten, then it's time to pull the skin. Pulling the skin sounds scary, but it's really not that complicated a process, and it's certainly easier than ripping out the entire interior of the trailer and trying to fix it from the inside. This wood needs to be exposed and it needs to be repaired or replaced. So I'm going to show you a little bit about pulling skin off of a vintage travel trailer. Today we're going to take some metal off the sides of this 1967 Aristocrat. It's going to be taking a lot of screws out, so you need a good driver with a fresh battery, bit to match the screws, which in this case is 1/4 inch, or if you don't have one of those, just a socket adapter and a small socket. So we'll start by backing out the screws in the J-rail. This goes all the way around the rain gutter. Now we use a stiff putty knife to gently pry off the J-rail. Pretty soft, so try not to bend it any more than you have to. If your trailer is old, you'll be doing this because this butyl putty is dried out, which is what causes leaks. So this will actually be a little bit easier with dried putty. Once the rail's off, we want to scrape off all the old putty from both the rail and from the trailer and get it pretty clean, because you want the new putty to adhere well. The bottom trim on this trailer is just J-rail that's been rolled underneath and screwed from the bottom. So we're going to have to take all these screws out. I'm going to leave the very last one on both ends and the one in the middle in place until the rest of them are out, so that I can take it out in a controlled fashion, because it bends very easily. You see I have a can here for the screws and a bucket for the old putty. Okay, it's really good if you have an assistant to help with these long pieces, which I don't today, so I'm using my step to kind of support this end so that it doesn't bend down too far. Get that middle screw out. And we'll get the last one. Now let's take the windows and doors out in the same way. I'm only going to take the door out today, but the windows come out the same way. Take out the screws, the whole assembly pulls out after you free the putty. inside for any latch screws that might be holding the frame to the... Back those out. So with all the screws out, now we need to start prying the frame away from the sticky putty. The door will be a little bit of a snug fit because there's molding around the inside that's been installed snug against the frame, so it'll be a tight fit, but it'll come out. I'm working my knife behind where the screws were because that's where it'll be the tightest, and also if I bend the aluminum a little bit, the screws will pull it back when I reinstall the door. I'm also going to try a little gentle tapping with a rubber hammer from the inside to help break the bond loose. Again, all this aluminum is very soft, so just be very gentle with it, even when beating on it. Be careful. All right, once I have it loose from the bottom, I can get a little leverage. Just ease it out. The putty in this door is fairly new, so it's still pretty aggressive. Old putty, dried out putty, should provide a little less resistance. Steady as she goes here. Easy, watching that soft aluminum, trying not to bend anything. And out it comes. The way these trailers are built, the side metal goes on first, and then it's trimmed to fit the shape of the trailer. And then the roof and the front and back form a continuous skin that's hammered over, folded over the side skin. So it's the last thing to go on, but it's the first thing that has to come off. If you're taking the entire skin off the trailer, you'll want to take this top, front, and back sections off first. Be careful when you put them back on. These corners up here you see are cut to make this tight bend. If yours has this, a canned ham probably won't, but if you have this tight bend like this with these cuts, that's potential leak. So make sure you have plenty of putty under it and on top of it under the J-rail when you put it back together. So today I'm only going to be removing the bottom two panels. This one and the bottom full length of the trailer, and you'll see why I'm doing that in a moment. So I'm not going to remove the top and the back. I'm just going to loosen them so that I can get these two panels out. To get these staples out, you're going to need a hammer, a screwdriver or two, and some pliers or some vice grips, or both. So get the screwdriver under the staple if you can, or under the edge of the metal if you need to, and just get it loosened enough that you can pull it with pliers. I broke that one. Not terribly difficult, but it's tedious because there's a lot of staples. Get a few of them loose here. And we'll go after them all with the pliers. I have the staples removed from this bottom piece, but because of all the cutouts with the door and the wheel well and the hatch in the back, it's very fragile and very likely to kink. So I'm going to put a splint on it before I remove it. bottom piece is slipped into a slot in the piece above it. And you can see the tail on the piece above it is what's supposed to be stapled to the wood, and then the bottom piece slips right up into this slot, and that's what holds it. So each piece is only stapled at the bottom, and it's held at the top by slipping into that groove. Okay, we're going to try to ease it out. It's important to have help when you do this, especially this bottom piece. Oh, I've put in a couple of screws for safety. I'll take those out. Alright, let's give it a try. Ease it out from the ends. And we're out. Here's why we're doing this today. This metal, as I mentioned earlier, is held on by staples in the flange at the bottom of the panel. Staples along here. And then the bottom piece slips up into the slot. Well, the guy who built this, that would be me, didn't do a very good job of stapling it, or used the wrong kind of staples or something, but they've come out. And so the side was buckling. These wide panels expand a fair amount in the heat, and they between that and the vibration of the road, it's pulled all these staples out. And the only way I can restaple it is to remove panels. I'm going to have to remove this panel because I have a similar problem with the upper piece. You can see it's not snug like it should be. So we're going to pull this piece out, and we're going to staple in the flange on the top piece. Then we're going to replace this piece, and we're going to staple it, and then we'll replace the bottom piece and staple it along the bottom. When you pull your skin, assuming you don't have the same problem I do, you're going to have to pop the staples in the flange before you can remove the piece. Okay, now we'll take out the upper piece.
Looks like it's still tight. The wind came
okay,
out.
sorry.
What should we do?
No, just go ahead and pull this corner out. It's just stuck in the corner. There we go. Whoa. So here's what my problem was. These staples were folding over on themselves instead of properly penetrating the metal. Here's what they look like. And I didn't really discover this until it was too late. Now, one thing I did find out was that using this type of staple, this blunt end, flat end staple, had a hard time penetrating. I later went to this kind. If it'll focus on that. I don't know if you can see, there's a point on each one, and those penetrated a lot better. But when I put this thing back together, I'm going to use the cabinet stapler. I'm going to use these guys, 3/4 inch by 1/4 inch. They pack a punch, they hold well. I just have to make sure that my air pressure is not so high that they go right through the metal. Alright. I'm going to start about in the middle here. We got nothing. There we go. Looks like it's perfect. My assistant here is going to take a few shots right on the bump there. Should have my goggles on. Right on the bump.
Here?
Yep. Push in. Push the gun in.
Alright.
Right about there.
I don't want to eat your fingers.
Yeah, that's a good idea if you don't. Alright, and we'll go all the way down the line, staple this whole thing, and then we'll put the next piece in. Okay, lift it up a little bit. And to 10. Oops, now we're out here. There we go. Alright, it's in the slot. Now we'll put some screws in it and we'll staple it along the bottom. Alright, so now we'll start moving these staples down. Start with Okay, now I want you to take it, put it right on the bump like we did before. Start right in the middle. Get your goggles on?
Yeah, right about here.
Fine. Go. Walk this way.
Put under you here.
Pull that metal under your feet. Push it in hard. Go.
My ears are ringing.
We'll finish the job by putting new butyl putty behind the bent over edges of the front and back, which will then tap back into place and staple. And also we'll put new putty on the back side of all the J-rail and the window flanges and any other fixtures that need to go on. Screw everything back down tight and call it a day. If you have an old travel trailer and you suspect rot, and you should, I'd encourage you to at least pull the windows and the skylight and replace that old putty. And while you're at it, you'll see the wood, and if the wood is sound, new putty, and you're in business. If you see rot, put aside a weekend or two and pull that skin. It's just a lot of screws and a lot of staples. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.